Yo, this is embarrassing. Got to see it's the fever so playing so bad and it gave me a fever because I'm so sick and tired of the Indiana Fever looking like dog shit the past two games without Caitlin Clark. It makes no sense. This is bad. And when I say bad, it's really bad because I'm gonna be honest with you. Stephanie White, one of my biggest fears with her coming over from the Connecticut Sun, and Stephanie White is an amazing head coach. I think she's still going to do well with the Indiana Fever. But one of my biggest fears about Stephanie White coming over and coaching the Indiana Fever is that she's a defensive head coach first, defensive philosophy, defensive mindset. And when she was at her best, she had a gritty team, a team that was full of defensive players first, offensive players second, and two bigs in the paint, two traditional bigs in the paint, and they muck up. They muck up offensively. They get offensive rebounds. They play hard. That was her team's offensive philosophy. And then she takes a powerhouse offensive team in the Indiana Fever, and it just seems like for whatever reason, things aren't clicking. You have Kelsey Mitchell playing a role where clearly she's better as a off-bar guard, playing off the ball, coming off screens, catch and shoot. You having Kelsey Mitchell play a role like she's Enrique. Like she's not Enrique from the Dallas Wings. Even though I feel that Kelsey Mitchell is the best pure hooper or best pure scorer in the game when we talk about off-ball ability, being just a bucket getter, finding ways to score, cutting, catch and shoot, coming off screens, coming off pin downs, running a fast break on transition, playing that wide receiver to Caitlin Clark's QB. But when she has the ball in her hands, it has to be made to make decisions, has to create off the dribble constantly. She is not suited for that. She's not Enrique from the Dallas Wings. She cannot play that Kyrie Irving role where you can play Kyrie Irving on the ball or off the ball. She is a much better player off the ball. And for Stephanie White to not realize that after seeing the success they had last year with her in that role, even with Caitlin Clark out, you still have to find ways to involve Kelsey Mitchell to get her easy looks, to get her in catch and shoot situations, not just having the ball in her hands, letting her dribble and trying to cook. That's not a winning formula. And it's embarrassing because the past two games, when you look at the Indiana Fever, I knew that without Caitlin Clark, they're not a championship caliber team. But without Caitlin Clark, they should still be a playoff caliber team. Right now, they're neither. And that's saying something when you have Aaliyah Boston. That's saying something when you have Kelsey Mitchell. That's saying something when you have DeWanna Bowden. That's saying something when you have Natasha Howard. They got real players on their team. There's no excuses where they should be losing to a young Mystics team that just outplayed them, out-hearted them, out-willed them, and then they lose to a Connecticut team, which is the worst team in the WNBA, who always just kicks the Indiana Fever ass, and it doesn't matter who's on their roster. Last year, they had a title contender, so it made sense. This year, they have nobody for them to just – they were 0-5 before this game. And Maria Mabry, she gets off of whooping the Indiana Fever ass. She gets off of, just destroying the opposing team's will. She had 13 points in the third quarter. She came out bussing, making shots, crossing, shooting, step backs, getting to her spots in the basketball court. Phenomenal player. Sonia Rivers, the rook from North Carolina State. A lot of upside. She was scoring when she needed to. She also was passing, facilitating. Tina Charles, 36 years old, still getting it done. This Connecticut Sun team isn't good, but they just secured their first victory against the Indiana Fever. I don't want to hear anybody talk about title contender. And this is why you have to play the game. All the off-season chatter, all the off-season noise, all the expectations, that doesn't matter at all. What you do on the basketball court matters. You have to show up and you have to put in the work and you have to become something special. And even without Caitlin Clark, it's no excuse for them to be losing these past 2 games. And even though they try to come back towards the end and make it a game and go on these runs, it don't matter because at the end of the night, if you don't win, it don't matter what run you came on. Let's talk about it. Peters, how embarrassing for the Fever. They lost to the Sun, who are winless. What is happening to the Fever? 0-5. Well, 1-5 now. It's very, very embarrassing. I can't make this up. I can't make this up. And Mitchell has been playing horrible. She's been playing horrible, and it's not just she's missing Caitlin Clark, of course, but it's also Stephanie White has to put her best players in position. Aaliyah Boston was out there looking like baby Jokic. She was like the female version of Nicole Jokic tonight. She was on the break, passing, dishing assists. She was rebounding. She was 7 for 7 from the field. She finished 8 for 10 from the field. She was doing everything on the basketball court for the Indiana Fever. She was kind of playing like the point center for the Indiana Fever. That's how down bad they are, where they got Aaliyah Boston having to play the point center and be the female version of Nicole Jokic tonight for the Indiana Fever. And the fact that she was doing some of that, I was very impressed because that's really not her play style, even though I always said that in the post on the block, Aaliyah Boston is the best passing big man in the WNBA. But who knows? Maybe she's going to continue to develop and work on her game. Maybe I like seeing what I saw from her, but it's still a shocker that Stephanie White, who is a championship caliber coach, can't figure out how to utilize her players without Caitlin Clark. I don't care what nobody says. She is the head coach. It's expectations. You don't lose to the youngest team in the WNBA, and you don't lose to the worst team in the WNBA on back-to-back nights and think people are going to feel like you're a championship caliber team. You are a playoff caliber team. Once again, of course, expectations without Caitlin Clark, it's like, okay, we understand it. You may not be a championship caliber team, but this roster should be a playoff contending team without Caitlin Clark. And right now, even though it's only 2 games, it's embarrassing. I said that in 4 games, I was like, I looked at their roster. I was thinking they played the Mystics twice. They played the Connecticut Sun. They played the Chicago Sky. I'm thinking in my head, well, the Indiana Fever can go 4-0 until Caitlin Clark comes back, probably gets the Atlantic Dream. I'm like, this should be no problem. This is a nice schedule for Caitlin Clark to rest, to come back healthy. They're playing the Mystics twice, the Connecticut Sun, and the Chicago Sky. These are 3 teams that most likely aren't going to be competing for a playoff spot, even though the Washington Mystics are exceeding expectations, but their 2 best players or 2 out of the 3 best players are rookies on their team. We know it's going to be some hurdles with them. They're just about development this year. So it's just kind of like they're doing well right now, but they're going to tailor off. They're not going to be what they're doing right now, and everybody knows that. But they're 0-2 right now, and I don't have the confidence after watching these past 2 games. I don't have the confidence to say that they're going to win against the Washington Mystics when they play them this upcoming week. I don't have the confidence to say that right now. Yeah, I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed in Kelsey Mitchell. Even playing with Caitlin Clark, she hasn't been the Kelsey Mitchell that we seen last year. Maybe that's because you have more pieces in the puzzle. Maybe it's just because she has to get her flow and her rhythm. I do not know what it is, but it probably needs to be where Stephanie White has to have some priority when it comes to actually having some roles. Because sometimes when you have players come on, you have the DeWanna Bonners, you have the Natasha Howards, And it's like you're trying to fit everybody in to make them happy. But the truth of the matter is, this core is Caitlin Clark, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston. Everybody else doesn't matter about their stats, doesn't matter about their numbers. You got to figure things out with your two best players because Aaliyah Boston has taken a leap this year. But they're not, the Indiana Fever aren't doing anything if Kelsey Mitchell, it's not the Kelsey Mitchell that we saw last year. If she's playing bad, if she's not consistent, if she's out of rhythm, if she's not being that threat offensively that we seen her be last year. This Fever team is not winning a first round matchup in the playoffs without Kelsey Mitchell being the Kelsey Mitchell that we know. So you would think with Caitlin Clark being out, you would think that Kelsey Mitchell would be playing better, but you would think that the coach would make sure they're running and utilizing Kelsey Mitchell to her full capacity with her strengths, not some of her weaknesses. They're putting the ball in her hands and trying to make her a point. She's not a point guard. She is a shooting guard. She is a off-ball wizard. She is a player where you have to utilize her as a hybrid guard and utilize her the same way similar to what the Golden State Warriors use Stephen Curry. Sure, Stephen Curry can play off ball, but he's damn good and a much better player off the ball. That's Kelsey Mitchell's role. That's what she has to be. You can't expect her to be this creator, off the dribble, passing, playmaker, do everything. That's not her game. And it's never been her game. And that's why even when the Indiana Fever, prior to all the years that she was there alone, that's why they tended to struggle because she needed somebody to be able to allow her to play her more natural position, which is, of course, the off-ball shooting guard, hybrid guard position. But I'm at a loss of words, chat. I'm at a loss of words. Fever are playing like amateurs. Peter's right. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy out here. It's no excuse. It's no excuse. And Maria, I love her. I love her attitude. I love the energy that she brings. She's one of those players that every team wants on their team, but hates to go against because she don't give a damn if they're down by 20. She gonna play like they up by 20. She don't give a damn if her team is winless. She gonna feel like if I'm on a court, we got a chance to win. She is a bucket getter. Somebody needs to go out and trade for her. I know she's been traded a lot, but it's unfortunate because she's been on terrible teams. Even when she gets into a good situation like last year, her whole entire team just goes and off in free agency and leaves, and her head coach leaves, and now she's stuck with the Connecticut Sun, even though she asked for a trade. Of course, they don't want to trade her because she's box office and she's a player that can help them win games, even though they're not going to win a lot of games this year. But it's crazy. It's embarrassing what we saw for the Indiana Fever tonight. The Fever can't even win their home game. This is really sad. I thought they was a better team. They looked worse than last year's team. Whew. And let's talk about it. You're at home and you're losing. You're at home. I'm watching the New York Liberty. Versus the Washington Mystics because I got YouTube TV, so I'm watching both games. And it's just a difference between real serious contenders and pretenders. And right now, the Indiana Fever are pretenders. Because even when you have a talented roster that's full of depth, it's like everybody still contributes on those championship caliber teams. So you watch a game with the New York Liberty, and Natasha Cloud didn't even score 1 point tonight, but she was still impactful. I think she was like plus 13 on the box for the plus minus. So I'm not a big plus minus guy. But then you had Sabrina Esco was cooking, Brianna Stewart and Lonnie was cooking, like Jaquel Jones. It was like a collective win against a Washington Mystics team who was young, who was competing in the first half. But the New York Liberty said, okay, let's sit up. Let's lock in. Let's show them that they're not in our league. And they end up beating them by more than 20 points in in the second half. Like, that's what you do. That's how you come out and show that you are for real. He's like, okay, we was playing around the first half. Let's really get to it. And I know the Liberty are champs, so that's kind of expected. But for this Indiana Fever team, if you have championship aspirations, you got to play like a championship team. If you have series playoff contending aspirations to make it not just into the playoffs, but make it past the first round, then you got to actually play like it. You can't be losing to teams you're not supposed to lose to. In the Indiana Fever, regardless without Caitlin Clark, they're losing to teams they're not supposed to lose to. This team used the term loosely has no chemistry at all. We all know bench players play better at home. Well, why didn't the bench players play better at home? And then the Indiana Fever, it seems like Sophia Cunningham got hurt as well. She hurt her. She tweaked her ankle. I don't know if it's the same ankle. So that's not good news for the Indiana Fever. You're losing at home. You're losing to the youngest team in the WNBA and the worst team in the WNBA. And you claim you're a playoff team, but you're not really a playoff team. You're definitely not a championship contender, because real championship contenders don't lose against those caliber teams that they're losing it against. And then even like some of the action that the Suns were running, they were running like ghost action the whole night. They were running the same plays. And for Stephanie White to be such a great defensive head coach, it's just like the team is running the same offensive plays and sets, and you're still getting cooked and you're still losing. And then when they up the defensive pressure towards the end of the game, that's when the Connecticut Sun started falling apart. But it's just like, why wasn't we upping the pressure, defensive pressure, like I've seen them do in spurts? Because I do feel like this Indiana Fever team is a better defensive team already than they were last year, because they were so atrocious last year. Maybe that's not saying much because of how bad they were last year, but they have defensive players that can play defense, that can get up and pressure the ball, that can muck up and speed up the game and try to get turnovers and get easy and open baskets once they get to turnovers and get out on a transition. They wasn't playing that way until literally when the last 4 minutes, and that's when the game kind of shifted. So you have to use if you're the Fever, if you're not making shots, if your best players aren't playing great, then you have to find ways to get easy and open looks. You have to find ways to up the intensity. And that's when defense comes in. That's when on-ball pressure comes in. That's when playing the full court, half court defense, maybe blitzing, defensive traps. That's when those things can be utilized to create that energy. But it just seems like the Indiana Fever have been lackluster offensively the past two games, and also questionable defensive velocity from Stephanie White the past two games from a defensive head coach. So it's crazy. And for us, like the term loosely, Scott Harris talks about chemistry. They have no chemistry at all. Yes, chemistry takes time. You have to build chemistry. That's why it's important for Caitlin Clark to come back, because it's a long, even though it's a short season, it's still a long season. It's still a grind. You still have to develop. You still have to go on runs. You still have to find your identity. And right now, the Indiana Fever don't have an identity outside of Caitlin Clark, who is probably the best floor riser in the WNBA, which is crazy to think about, like, because it's like, damn, you expect that, you understand that last year, but this year with the acquisitions that they got, with the leap that Aaliyah Boston is taking, you would think like, damn, they can beat the Mystics, they can beat these terrible teams without Caitlin Clark. But now it's seeing like all the hypeness, all the rumors, all the praise is definitely well warranted, because obviously this Indiana Fever team is like a Cleveland Cavalier team without LeBron James. They ain't winning much. They ain't doing much. Even when you got talented players, you still need that engine. And Caitlin Clark is that engine clearly for the Indiana Fever. And clearly they miss her. And clearly, like, they go when she goes. And when she's on, even if she's not playing well, we see them win games. We see them compete because of her gravity, because of the attention that she brings on the basketball court, as well as the way she plays when she can be 0 for 10 from the three-point line, she's going to take that next shot, and she may be 1 for 11 now, and she may hit it, and she may go on a run and get you 10 in a row, and she may generate 13 points in a quarter between passing and scoring. That's that energy. That's that competitiveness. That's that fire. That's that mama mentality. That's that always locked in. That's that we not worrying about the last basket because you're only as good as your last make. That's what Caitlin Clark brings. And clearly the Indiana Fever are missing all that. Golden State Valkyrie look better than Indiana Fever. That's really sad because I didn't expect anything. I'm not gonna let's not get too crazy. Let's not get too crazy. Golden State Valkyrie are trash. I'm not gonna. I've never the Indiana Fever down bad, but they ain't down that bad now. Let's pump the brakes. Now it's levels. It's levels. Oh, they also look lackluster defense. They choose to play defense, maybe going into the fourth quarter. Exactly. And how are you, Stephanie White, if you are known for your defense philosophy, your defense IQ, and your coaching schemes on the defensive side of the basketball court, and you're coming from a team where you had the top 5 defense in the WNBA last year, how are you allowing your team to have spurts where they're playing great defense and playing really bad defense, or playing for the most of the game where they are playing terribly, and then they hit the switch, and then they hit the intensity on the defensive side, and they're able to get back into the game? That's coaching. That's on Stephanie White, because 90% of defense is effort. And the Indiana Fever don't have any effort right now on the defensive side of the basketball court. And they have players that actually are pretty decent defenders that can really change the game defensively, which you have to be able to play, especially in the playoffs, defense and get timely stops. And we've seen the Indiana Fever get timely stops and play defense when it matters. So it's embarrassing. How can they win with two hurt with the same game? CCI, they had to adjust with Colson, not another adjustment. If 1 of 3 players are injured, of course they're going to have trouble. Let me say something. That's an excuse, Christian. That's an excuse. They had Kelsey Mitchell. They had Natasha Howard. They had Sophia Cunningham, even though she got hurt. They had Aaliyah Boston. They had DeWanna Bonner. Those players are better than Sonia Rivers, Maria Mabry, and Tina Charles. The Fever core that they had tonight versus the core of the Connecticut Sun, it's no excuses why they should lose that game. I don't care who is injured. Yes, Caitlin Clark is out. Yes, another player was out. Yes, Colson was out, but that's no excuse. And when Colson played, Colson was not really doing much. She's supposed to be their backup point guard, but they need a real backup point guard, because even when Colson was playing and was starting, it wasn't like she was really providing them with any true point guard plays for us, like getting players into spots, for us like just pushing the ball in transition. They were still trying to put the ball in Kelsey Mitchell's hand and kind of make Kelsey Mitchell this combo guard and have Kelsey Mitchell do everything on the basketball court. That ain't like, come on, we got to keep it real. We got to keep it a beam, man. But it's your boy, Mike K. Smith. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Appreciate y'all for happening in the chat. Follow me on AKISS NBA on all the social media platforms. Always talking to WNBA and the NBA. Once again, AKISS NBA on all the social media platforms, especially NBA Threads and Instagram. And always leave y'all with this: trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean out to your own understanding. Always acknowledge Him, and He will direct your path. Faith without works is dead. All my people in the chat, shout out to y'all, man. I'm gone. Peace.